I'm Chicky Bok Bok. Welcome to the show where neuralgia comes alive. Wait a minute. Neuralgia? Ugh, isn't that nerve pain? Why would you want to go to a show that gets on your nerves? Oh, what's that? Oh, nostalgia. Oh, thank you. Oh, welcome to the show where nostalgia comes alive. It's time for Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Enjoy. Roll it.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy to be here with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm your host, Jake Duffenball. And with me, as always, our co-hosts, Chris Bixby and Matt Bingle. How you guys doing?
Doing terrific. Hello, everybody. How are you, Jakey?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you for asking. Chris,
Wonderful.
what do we have for today?
Today's guest is a puppeteer and director. He is one of the lead Muppet performers for Sesame Street and the Muppets, and has taken on the roles of characters including Big Bird, Count Von Count, Floyd Pepper, Uncle Deadly, and of course, Kermit the Frog. He also puppeteered on some other TV series we'll talk about later on. And here he is, Matt Vogel. Matt, happy to have you here.
Hello, how's it going?
Doing great, Matt.
good.
Thank you. How about you?
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Yes. So for
Good
those
to
who
have you
don't
here.
for those who don't know you, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, I am, as you said, Chris, Muppet performer. I work for both Sesame Street and for the Disney Muppets. So I play characters. I'm a Muppet performer of characters, like you said, Big Bird and the Count. And for Sesame Street, I'm also a co-producer on that show, and I'm a director on that show. And then for the Disney Muppets, I get to play characters like Kermit the Frog and Floyd Pepper and Uncle Deadly, and do lots of fun and funny things with a lot of good friends, and I get to laugh a lot all day long, which is not a bad way to make a living.
Right, definitely.
Absolutely. So, what was your background like, and how did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest in Kansas City. Are any of you guys from the Midwest?
No, we're
No.
East Coast.
We're all on the
You're
Yeah.
East Coast. Okay, well, that's where I live now. But before then, I lived in Kansas City, which is kind of smack dab in the middle of the country. I grew up a huge fan of Jim Henson and of the Muppets. And I loved Sesame Street. I loved all the characters. I just loved trying to figure out how they were doing what they were doing. When I watched the Muppet Show, every once in a while I would see like a head or something pop up in the bottom of frame or something, and I didn't quite. I knew what it was, but I just wanted to know more. And that kind of that inspired me and led me to build my own puppets, which I did at like, I was maybe third or fourth grade. I built my own puppets. They were not very good puppets, but I built them anyway. They were made out of t-shirts and masking tape and cardboard. I had no idea how to do it. I just kind of looked at what I saw on TV and just tried to replicate as best this little 9 or 10-year-old boy could. I made my own puppets. I started entertaining kids in the neighborhood. I entertained kids at school and at church and wherever people would let me come play with my puppets. And then what happened next? So I did puppet stuff all through like my grade school growing up, and then into middle school. We called it junior high then. And in ninth grade, I was in a talent show, and I after I performed, I won one of the prizes in the talent show, and I heard a few kids booing, and
Oh,
that really affected me. It really, I put the puppets away. I put them in the closet. I decided that maybe I didn't want to be embarrassed or humiliated or booed. I mean, nobody loves that. And so I didn't do that anymore for a while, for a little while. My parents, though, they enrolled me in an acting school, like a children's acting school. And so I started learning acting and met a lot of kids there that were very similar to me, creative types who love to make characters, create characters, and which is that's kind of what I was doing as a puppeteer, but now I was doing it as me, as an actor.
Right.
And that led me to go to a college, Webster University, Theater for Conservatory of Theater Arts, and I got a BFA in acting. And the whole time I was very interested, and still inspired, and still loved the Muppets, still loved Sesame Street, still was really inspired by Jim Henson. When he when he died, it was 1990, and I would have been a freshman in college, and it really hit me hard. I mean, it was devastating to me. And then later that year to see that the Muppets celebrate Jim Henson, that was, I mean, first of all, it was beautiful, but it also was just it was another, it was just more like sadness because of of his loss. And but that didn't really make me think in that moment, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna become a Muppet performer. I didn't know that you could be a Muppet performer. I didn't know that was like a job, or a job that I could have anyway. But what I did do when I was a senior in college is I made a puppet video, and I sent it off to the Jim Henson Company in New York. And it was a couple of months maybe, but then I got a response back. It was a really nice rejection letter. It was very, very kind. It was very nice, and they gave some tips on what they thought they saw in the video, which was also very nice. And you know what? That should have stopped me right there. I mean, it could have stopped me again. At first the talent show kind of making me feel like maybe this is what I shouldn't do. Now a letter from the company of the person that I was so inspiring to me, telling me, maybe this isn't for you. But it didn't stop me, because even though I was going to move to New York to become an actor, my wife saw an ad in a newspaper, and that ad was a picture of Kermit the Frog, and it said, "Do you measure up to be a Muppet?" And they were looking for somebody that was my height, my size, left-handed, which I am, although I'm a right-handed puppeteer. So I answered the ad, and they got in touch with me and said, "Yeah, come on in. We'd love to meet you." So I go in to meet who I wasn't exactly sure who it was, but it turned out to be John Henson, Jim's youngest son. He was looking for a double, somebody that could do what he was doing when he was unavailable. He was very busy, and it ended up being this Coca-Cola polar bear. And so I don't know if you've seen that. There's like a puppet version of the Coca-Cola polar bear.
Okay,
Mhm.
I
So
think I
that
might
was
have
Yeah,
seen
I've
it
seen it.
somewhere. Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So John used to go around, and I mean, he would go around to wherever the Coca-Cola polar bear was needed. It was like the Olympics and like really cool places. And then when he was not available, I got to go and do these really cool things as well as the Coca-Cola polar bear. It was a lot of fun. It was really great. And John was so sweet. Like the day that I met him, the day that I went in for this audition, I was the last guy to go, and he goes, "Hey, you want to go get lunch?" And I was like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to go get lunch. I mean, I did. So I, went to lunch with John Henson that day, and he probably asked me, to tell my story. And I probably said everything that I've said up to this point to you. And John was so sweet. He was such a nice guy. And I ended up doing that for a little while. And then, um, and then I made another puppet video that I made. And once I moved to New York, I made another puppet video. And this puppet video, I got a letter back from the person that had sent that rejection letter earlier. Only this time she was inviting me to a workshop, a Muppet workshop. And so I was able to go to this Muppet workshop, and there were people there like Kevin Clash was there, of course, and Jim Martin and Stephanie DeBruzzo, and um, there were a lot of other Muppet performers that were there. That were kind of in my class, I guess you would say. Stephanie and I are the same age, and we were kind of coming into the world of Muppets at around the same time. Uh, After that, I think the next thing that I did was I did the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh,
And I got
nice.
to, yeah, it was awesome. And it was so cool. It's this big float of the Sesame Street of the 1, 2, 3 building. And I don't even remember if I had met a lot of the performers yet. But I was, I was doing that. And I played Bert on the float, which was fun. Martin P. Robinson was right next to me playing Telly, and the
Ah,
whole
yes.
way,
Love
I love
Marty.
Marty, and I love Telly actually too. But the
Ah,
whole way
yes.
down the parade route, Marty, as Telly, was yelling out, "This is not Bert! This is not Bert! It's an imposter!" And he wasn't wrong, but no, but
No, he
you can't
wasn't.
hear, you can't hear from the street. You can't hear us, yelling. At least I don't think you can. Uh, and I should say also that somewhere in here, and I don't really remember the timeline for it because I have a terrible memory, but somewhere in here, I was asked to come in and do an audition with Carol Spinney for Big Bird.
Oh,
Carol at this time it was like 65 years old, and which, by any accounts should have had any like if you want to do the job, great. If you don't want to do the job anymore, that's great too. It's, your choice. This is Carol Spinney, this is Big Bird and Oscar from day one on Sesame Street. And for whatever reason, he was looking for somebody to maybe kind of in the same way that John had somebody there to kind of be there for him when he was not available. So it was me and I think 4 other fellas, and we were auditioning for Big Bird in front of Big Bird, which was very weird. Um, but Carol was so sweet, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful man. He was just
Yeah.
the absolute best. And from the first time I met him, this is the story that I'm sure I've told it 100 times, and maybe you've heard it as well. But the person that had sent me that rejection letter, that then sent me the "Hey, let's go to the workshop" letter, was also the person that introduced me to Carol Spinney. Her name is Renee Rochelle, and I had never met him before, and we're there at this audition, and I came up, but she said, "Come over here," and I went over to her, and she said, "Carol, I want you to meet Matt Vogel. Matt Vogel, this is Carol Spinney." And Carol his eyes kind of like lit up a little bit, and he goes, "Your last name is Vogel? That's German. It means bird. This may be the job for you," he said with a little laugh. And it was, I'm about to audition. Why would you say that to
what?
somebody? But I think it was kind of lucky for me that he did know German and did know that my name meant bird in German. But I auditioned, and after that, there's several sessions with Carol. He had picked me to kind of be his um, uh, apprentice, I guess you would say, in a way. And I did that for many, many, many years alongside Carol. And anytime he was not available for something, I would step into the bird and do that for him. And that's not the typical way that that Muppets work. I mean, it's always one person, one voice, one performer. And so this was kind of a little bit unusual, and really doesn't really work that way. But I was truly honored to get to spend time with Carol. He was definitely one of my mentors, along with Kevin Clash, who kind of taught me everything I know about how to manipulate puppets and work puppets on camera. And another mentor I had was Jerry Nelson. I was so fortunate to get to be his assist, as the Count, and whatever else he did. And it's just before I talk about Jerry, do you have any questions? Am I just talking and not letting you? If you guys have any questions for me along the way, just tell me to stop and shut it, and then you know, you
No,
can
you're
ask a
good. You're
No,
question.
good.
Do you have
it's
any questions
no
up to
worries at
here or
all.
anything?
No, it's
Any-
it's interesting. My last name is also German. I have no idea
Ah,
what it means, but my last name, Bingo, is also German.
ah.
Don't try Google Translate with it, folks. I will say that. I tried it once and it came up as some sort of plant. I don't know, but
Oh,
I've it's interesting, like that full circle moment
yeah,
you had with Big Bird. It was just
yeah. It's
amazing. And the fact that your last name is Bird, it's like this is meant to be. Like
I know it's
it's
crazy. It's a little
incredible.
crazy.
It
It's crazy.
is very crazy.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that when I first started working on Sesame Street, I was Carol's apprentice.
Yeah.
But there, I needed to really get a lot of hours on camera under my belt. And the way to do that really is to assist somebody, is to right hand for somebody, just because it's a little less, there's a little less pressure. Although if you're a new guy coming in and you're going to right hand for somebody, anybody that's one of the main principal Muppet performers, that's a lot of pressure. But it's not like voicing a character and having to know how to work on a 3 camera live switching situation, which is what Sesame Street is. It's like we have 3 separate cameras. They will take like a wide shot and then they'll click over to like a close up of one character or click over to another close up of another character. And so there's these small little adjustments that the puppets have to make them look good in each of the shots if you happen to be in them. So a good way to learn that kind of technique is to be somebody's assist. So I was David Rudman's assistant, his right hand for many years, as with Baby Bear and with later Cookie Monster, whatever he was doing, because Peter Lintz was his right hand before me, and Peter Lintz went off to do Bear in the Big Blue House. And when he went
Right.
off to do Bear in the Big Blue House, I stepped into that role to assist David Rudman. And David is a remarkable performer. I love, not
Oh
only do I
yeah.
love David, but I love his performances. He's just I love watching his work.
And outside of that too, he's created a lot of wonderful
Oh my
shows.
gosh, yes. And I've been
Yes.
very fortunate to get to work on some of those shows, which I just think they're so unique and they are so funny and creative, and the puppets are beautiful. And so,
Oh yeah.
yeah, David's amazing. Um, but I was talking about another mentor, Jerry. I was talking about Jerry. So Jerry Nelson, when I met him, he was doing pretty well. But as we started to know each other, and I started to work with him, he was getting older, and his health was failing him a little bit. Actually, my wife and I got to go up. I think this was in like the year 2000. Yeah, like the summer of 2000, I think it was. We got to go up to he had a place up on Cape Cod, and he asked my wife Kelly and I. He said, "Do you guys want to come up and do a show with me?" He's going to do a show at this place near his house in Cape Cod, and he wanted to know if Kelly and I wanted to come up and. He was going to play music with his band, and he also wanted to have a show to help round it out. So he asked me if I would come up there, and my wife, Kelly, if we'd come up and help him do this show, write the show with him, perform in the show with him. And he also asked me if I had any puppets. And I just so happened that I had kind of on the side, kind of kept making a few puppets here and there just to kind of keep, um, just to try to keep creative. So we did this show with Jerry up in the Cape, and it was so much fun. We spent, I think, a week up at his place, just hanging out, and I remember one night, we worked on the show that day all day, and we're building props or something that night, and maybe we were having maybe a drink or something, and Jerry said, "Look, all this stuff with the Muppets and Sesame Street, all of that is fantastic. It's great, but." Always have something that is your own, something that you create that comes from you that is yours. and that's something that has stuck with me my whole career or since that moment. And I've tried to, you know, honor that and be true to that and do things that are my own and things that I do create. Um, and you know, I've been so fortunate my whole career to have these great mentors. Um, you know, many of them, some of them are gone now, but I still have many others. I mean, I would consider Dave Goles, who I know quite well. I would consider him a mentor, although he
Oh
would
yeah.
probably scoff at that. and
Yeah, right.
but that's kind of
Yeah.
our dynamic.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know, I've been very, very fortunate to have great mentors along the way who've given me great feedback, great notes, great just great examples of performers to watch.
Absolutely. And going back to Kevin Clash, I know you also got
Yeah.
to work closely with him for a number of years on Elmo's World. What was that
Yes.
like?
Well, that was kind of like a new, like an experimental piece of television. I feel like at the time we had these. There were a couple of different things that I got to do with him, with that on that show. One, it was John Tartaglia and me, and we were like John was he was like if there was a full body Elmo shot, which there were quite often on Elmo's World at this time. Um, John would be the hands and I would be the feet. So again,
Okay.
it's like it's assisting, and it's assisting in a really it's a you know it's a lot of concentration. It's Elmo. You have to really pay attention to the lead performance, like
Yeah.
where the head is and where the hips are, so that the feet are kind of always under the puppet. And so we would do that. That was one of the things that we would do. And then there was this other uh, element in Elmo's world that was like there was a drawer and a TV and the door I think even did something and a window that would do something. They were all CG, like very early CG elements. And they were puppeteered, but they were puppeteered via, we called them sliders. And they were just like these little sliders that you would like move to make them do whatever you needed them to do. So I played a slider. Jim Martin, I think, was one of the sliders. I think maybe John did some slider stuff, but that was kind of the beginning in that in on Elmo's World. That was what we did in the first couple seasons or so. I was the feet of Elmo, and then was doing these little sliders, and that was a lot of fun. It was, you know, it was just like new. It was brand new technology that we were learning how to do, and you know, it was pretty fun. I don't remember how many. I feel like there were like 65 Elmo's Worlds or something like
Oh
that. There was like a
yeah, there were
huge
definitely
amount
a
of
lot.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
but it was
definitely.
fun.
Yeah. So aside from your regular characters, do you have any favorite one-off characters you performed?
Um, yeah, I do. Let's see. So on Sesame Street, there's a couple I can think. Well, he's not really a one-off character, but because I've done him a few times now. But there's a guy named Herb the dinosaur, which is this kind of like a long-necked dinosaur. It kind of talks like this, and he's just, you know, he's just a real bold kind of dinosaur. Maybe doesn't know that he's extinct, but so he's fun. There was a character. What was his name? Hubert the Human Cannonball was a lot of fun. It was just this little, just real super lot of energy kind of guy that he would be shot out of a cannon on Sesame Street. There was another one called David Letter Guy, I think it was,
Oh,
or maybe it was Letter Person. David Letter Person, David Letter Guy, one of those two. And the thing about that one is that was really super fun because you know, that was before I had any real main characters, I believe. Yes, that was. Yeah. So, you know, I was still assisting Jerry and David or whoever needed assistance. And every once in a while, Kevin, who was doing the casting, would throw, um, you know, a role to whoever, you know, to like the assists and the people that were kind of coming up to give them a chance to kind of stretch their wings, stretch their legs, whatever it is, stretch their arms, and to give them a chance to play some characters. And so I got to play this guy named David Letter Guy, I think. And that day I came in and I had a huge, like I have migraines, and I had a really bad headache, like just like probably a lot of probably a stress-induced headache, I
Yeah,
would
probably,
imagine.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
so what we do is we are seated on the floor on Sesame Street. We're rolling around on these little rollies, right? I don't know if I'm sure people have talked
Yeah.
about that before, but we are seated. We're not standing, which is optimal for us to perform, but Sesame Street just doesn't work that way. But I remember between takes, I would just I would just sink down and just stay real still. I just could barely do anything. And then they'd go 5, 4, 3, 2. And I'd pop up and I'd put the puppet up into the air. And I'd like, you can't, I had to put all the energy out there into it. And as if I didn't have a migraine, which is really hard. It's not easy to do. But I do remember doing that, not for that reason, but just because I remember enjoying playing that character. So
Nice.
yeah, there've been some. I'm trying to think if there were any Muppet type stuff that I've played, but since I've been in the Muppet world, I've mostly, because I kind of came in, the reason that I came in to the Muppet world was because Jerry Nelson had decided he didn't want to travel anymore. And so we had this meeting in a hotel room with Jerry and some of his characters. And I was there, and David Rudman was there, and Marty Robinson was there, and Steve Whitmire was there, and Debbie McClellan was there from the Muppets. And Jerry just sat and talked about his characters. He talked about, what he thought about all of them. He talked about Robin. He talked about Floyd. He talked about Julius Strangepork. He talked about all those Muppet characters, which was really cool. And not too long after that, let's see, that was around 2007, maybe. So maybe something like that. So like 2008 was when I kind of started with not the Sesame Street Muppets, but what I call the Disney Muppets, just to kind of keep them separated for people's brains.
Definitely. So, are
Yeah.
there any celebrity guests you worked with on Sesame Street that kind of stick out as some of your favorites?
Yes, there are. There are several, but I'll try to keep it brief. So I'm a huge fan of the band REM.
Oh,
And so
yes.
Okay.
when they were on,
Yes.
I was like, yeah, it was a little bit, I was like, it was an awesome, awesome day because I'd always been a fan of REM. And then that day they were on Sesame Street doing a song, and I got to be the Kate Pearson puppets. Muppets hands. I was her hands, and I think it was
Oh,
Stephanie's
nice.
voice, and Kevin was playing the puppet, the head,
Yep.
and
Hmm.
I was the hands. And
Yep.
so that was really fun meeting REM. Garth Brooks was a such a gentleman. Back at that time, you could bring visitors to the set, which we're not as, it's just a little bit harder to do now. We're in a smaller space. It's just a lot more crowded, just in general. But at that time, I had my mom was visiting, and what I will never forget that I will never forget that when I brought my mom over to meet Garth Brooks. He took off his cowboy hat and he shook her hand and said, "It's so nice to meet you, ma'am." He was just, could not have been more. And he didn't, now I was not special. My mom was not special in that way. Every single person, every single mom or whoever was there, he treated the same. He was
Oh.
so kind. He didn't come with a big entourage. It was just Garth. And, I think he had his mom with him. I'm pretty sure he did. So that was really cool. And many, many years later, just a few years ago, in fact, we did something for the Kennedy Center honors, and Garth Brooks was there, and I said, I'm shy when I go up, and even if I've met like a celebrity, I'm pretty shy. I'm a shy person anyway, but I went over to I said, I got to say something to him. And I told him, I said, look, Mr. Brooks, 20 years ago, or however long it was, you were so kind, and it just made such an impression on me, and how how kind you were to my mom. And he was like, oh, that's so nice. He was just so sweet. Again, just so sweet and kind and wonderful and lovely. So it's really nice when you meet, um, you know, people famous people that are just really lovely, wonderful, normal, regular seeming human beings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful to hear. So I know a lot of Sesame fans are wondering, is it fine if we can hear a bit of Big Bird and the Count?
Oh, sure. You just want me to do the voice? Is that what you're saying? So yeah, my Big Bird is kind of up here. This is where I hear it because this is where, when I watched Sesame Street, this is how I heard him.
Fair enough.
And for me, the Count is down here. He's a little bit different. Probably a little more close to like a Bela Lugosi kind of Count.
Awesome.
That's
I can
great.
see that. I can see that. And
Yeah.
now, speaking of Sesame Street, you're also
Yeah.
a director on the show. What's it like working behind the camera compared to in front of it as a puppeteer?
Well, technically, we're working below the camera, but
Right, yeah, below, right,
but
right.
below the frame, if you will.
Yes, right.
But working behind the camera, you're right. So it is it's a little different. Uh, but I feel like being a Muppet performer has given me kind of an advantage because I have had, I don't know, like I had a decade of just kind of not only learning the puppet craft and learning how to do puppetry for television, but I also had the privilege of working with some really great directors, really great three-camera storytelling directors on Sesame Street. Lisa Simon and Ted Mays and Emily Squires and Kevin Clash and Joey Mazzarino, and a lot of these directors, well, a couple of them there are Muppet performers, but a lot of these directors, they just knew how. Ken Diego, oh my gosh, Ken Diego is great. He's still working at Sesame Street. They just know how to tell a story in a really efficient, logical way, with three cameras and in a way that you don't, it's not just, you're not shooting something just with a single camera and we're going to shoot all the wides and then we're going to shoot all the close-ups and then we're going to shoot all the special shots and then later we'll put it together. That's not how we do it on Sesame Street. We shoot it all together. So you've got these three cameras, like I said earlier, and you cut to these different cameras and you have to always be ready, but you're telling a story, right? You're not just cutting to a close-up because, it looks good. You're cutting to the close-up because it's the character's delivering important information, right? Or there might be some other reason, there's an emotion that we're seeing from that character, whatever it might be. And so I got to learn that just by watching before I was even thinking of being a director. I got to watch these other directors and how they worked. And that helped influence then my work as a director on Sesame Street. And I love it. I love being able to put together a story. Sesame Street's great because usually in the storytelling, there's some sort of pattern. So I like to use a visual pattern to it as well. So if they're going to do something and try something, fail, and then try something, fail, and try something, and then succeed, I like to make it almost look the same each time, except maybe on the fail or maybe on the succeed. You know what I mean? I try to make the visual story that I'm telling reflect the word on the paper. But it's fun. I love doing it.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
So some of the other series you puppeteer on were Bear in the Big Blue House and Between the Lions. What were those shows like for you to get to work on?
Let's see. Between the Lions, I loved going on that. That was one of those shows where I got to kind of come in and do just little, like one-off roles. And that was a lot of fun. Let me think of what was that? You said like, let's see, Between the Lions and Bear in the Big Blue House. I didn't do a lot on Bear in the Big Blue House. But it did come in a couple of times and do a couple of things. I feel like there was a Bear's friend Ursa.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
I got
Ursa.
to do that. When I think Carmen Ospar is the voice of the character. But I got to
Yes.
come in and do
Yeah,
that. And
I love Carmen.
she's
Yes.
awesome. And of course, Noel McNeil is brilliant. And so I got to pick up, learn from him because he was inside a bear and I was inside a bear at the same time. And on Between the Lions, getting to work with really good friends, Peter Linz is super fun. But I got to do like one-off characters on those shows, and those are really fun too. I mean, the great thing about them is that they kind of are a lot of the people that worked on those shows and helped create those shows are from the same universe, the same Sesame Muppet universe. So there's like a similar, definitely like a shorthand in terms of with the Muppet performers or with the performers of the characters. And so that is a nice advantage coming in. A lot of times the directors, you've worked with the directors before. So that makes it a nice advantage as well. Or they have just been in that Muppet universe for many, many years. As for example, on Between the Lions, Chris Surf and Michael Frith, they kind of came from that world, from Sesame Street and the Muppets. So that made it, for me, easier and a joy.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So you also got to puppeteer on the Noggin series, Ubi as the character Angus.
Right.
Now this puppetry show was very unique because
Yeah.
it featured just glass eyeballs. What was that show kind of like for you?
It's another one where I just kind of came in and was a guest. Did a couple of episodes, I think, as Angus, which is the weirdest looking of the Ubi type characters because his eyes are underneath. I don't know why that was decided. I didn't decide that. I don't think somebody said, hey, what if, they were trying different looks out on characters. And so that's what happened with him. But, again, the same kind of thing, Matt, it was these people that had worked, on Sesame Street, written for Sesame Street. And of course you had, Tim Lagasse and Stephanie D'Abruzzo and Tyler Bunch and Noel again, and all these people that I just love working with. So it was so much fun. I was really happy to come in and play.
Definitely.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. What's it like getting to work on Blues Room?
Blues Room was Blues Room. Let me think about Blues Room. I remember, I have little flashes of memories of Blues Room. I remember that sometimes the puppets might have been a little cumbersome. I don't remember exactly what I did on Blues Room. I know I was there, but I don't remember exactly what I did. Do you know what I did? What did I do on Blues Room? I don't know. Because I feel like there may have been somebody was playing one character and then they weren't back for a season. So then I might have filled in for somebody on a character for something. And what can I say? Again, it was like working with people that I love working with. The puppeteers on that were all puppeteers that I'd worked with before, like Joey and Leslie Carrara and Tim
That's great
Lagasse, and
people.
really
Yeah.
just really awesome
And I'm
performers.
looking here. It says you performed a character, ABC Puppy, on the show.
Sure. Maybe.
I was a long time. I haven't seen that show in gosh,
Oh
it was
yes,
so long.
ABC Puppy. I don't
Right.
remember.
Yeah.
I wish I did. I don't. There are people that have really great memories. Stephanie D'Abruzzo is one of them. She's got an
Oh, yeah.
amazing memory.
Oh yeah.
But me, not so much. I try. Little flashes come to me every once in a while. Like I just had a flash of when you said Blues Room, where we shot, and we shot it in 2 different locations, over the span of the show, and I remember working with Joe that was on the show at the time, the guy
Jonathan
that
Penn,
plays.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, he was awesome.
That's wonderful.
So it was a great experience. I do remember, here's one time I do remember, this is what I remember about Blues Room. I ate a carrot once and maybe was allergic to it for some reason. And I felt like my throat was swelling
Oh
up.
boy.
Oh.
That was not great. That's what I remember about Blues Room. There you go. I don't know what, I don't know. Whatever I ate, I was allergic to, which what can you do?
So kind of moving on to the Muppets, do you kind of
Sure.
remember your first major project with them?
Yes, I do. It was called Studio DC. Is that what it's
Oh
called?
yeah,
Studio
yeah.
DC Live.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't live. But and what they had was they had some videos. And I don't remember I think they had like this would have been the first time that I was going to play Floyd. And I think they had already shot some pieces that were going to go in it, like some music videos, and they were going to like I think there was a music video with the Electric Mayhem and Miley Cyrus, and that was going to go in, but I didn't play Floyd in that particular piece. But then they had all this kind of linking material and other sketches that they were going to put into the show, and Floyd was in there. And then I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure that Dave Goelz was out at that time. He was having surgery or something, and so I had to play Gonzo, which, it's tough to play somebody else's character, especially when they're still playing that character. It's tough when you're playing their character and they're no longer around. That's one thing. But when you're playing that character for them and stepping in for them for a minute, while they're having surgery or whatever, that's a whole other difficult ball of wax.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I
Yeah.
remember from that show. And that was I think Kelly and I had like a brand new baby with us, and
Oh,
and it was fun. And the kids that were in it, some of them, like Selena Gomez, I believe she was in that, and Demi Lovato, they were in it, and everybody was really, really sweet, and everybody was really nice. And we had a good time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
wonderful. So moving a little ahead in time, what
Yep.
was it like working on the 2011 Muppets movie with Jason Segel and Amy Adams?
They were lovely. It was wonderful to work with Jason Segel. I was really excited to work with Amy. Most of the time, I got to work with Chris Cooper, with Uncle Deadly, and it was kind of the
Yes, that's
first
right.
time I had done Uncle Deadly. And at that time, there wasn't a ton of stuff that Jerry had really done with Uncle Deadly, and they were kind of like, although not as much as they did with the 2015 series, where they really tried to kind of like define who this character was. He was still this flamboyant or verbose, overly dramatic henchman, right hand man to the bad guy. And the most fun that I had on that shoot was getting to work with Bill Beretta as Bobo,
Love
because
Bill.
we would just make stuff up, while the camera was pointed at these two, uh, fools. And usually Bobo would do something that would irritate Uncle Deadly. And I remember that being a really, it wasn't my first film, but it was the first film where I had anything to say, I think, really, because I had done The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland, but that was all I I was kind of when Carol wasn't down there, he was down there some of the time, but when he wasn't down in North Carolina where we shot it, I was Big Bird. Um, and so I didn't really,
And because he was Oscar
everything
for
was
most of
looped.
it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but everything was looped. So
Right.
but for this, I got to say things as not only as Uncle Deadly, but for Sweetums, had some stuff, and then there was that 80s robot had stuff to
Oh
say,
yeah.
and so it was
Oh,
kind of fun to
yes.
create a character that was not something before, or that was not was not there was not a stamp on it from some other performer. That was kind of fun to do that for 80s robot. But it was great. It was a really fun experience. I enjoyed working with the whole Muppet crew.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you also worked on the 2014 movie Muppets Most Wanted, performing the main villain Constantine. What's it like getting to perform him?
I loved that. I loved that experience. We shot that in the UK. We shot it in London. mostly. And what was fun about that was, again, it was getting to create this character out of nothing. And I really enjoy playing, how should I put this? Idiots, I guess. He's kind of an idiot. Constantine thinks he's really, he thinks he's the best at whatever it is he does, but he's not. He's kind of a fool. And so I like playing. And, if I look at the other characters that I play, a lot of Jerry's characters, like, uh, well, certainly New Zealand, kind of a goofball. Crazy Harry's kind of a goofball. A lot of them are kind of little like one-dimensional goofballs, that the challenge comes in trying to round them out and make them feel three-dimensional, and that's what I feel like I got to do with Constantine. I really enjoyed playing that character. It was a lot of fun working with Ricky Gervais. We got along very well. When we did the press junkets for that, I had the easiest job of all, because Ricky, I would, be on the floor with the puppet and sitting next to Ricky, and he would do all the heavy lifting. He would be the, talk about the show, the movie, and who's in it and what's it about. And I would just make fun of him or make fun of the interviewer or whatever as Constantine. It was just like, that was just the most fun ever. But I
Definitely.
loved
So,
it. Loved
yeah,
it.
absolutely. And in 2017, you took on the role of Kermit the Frog.
Mhm.
What kind of went into the process of getting that character? Like, what was the audition process like?
That was an audition process where we we had, let me see, there were four of us, and it was like, I don't know how long this process was. It was a couple of months. And it wasn't like every day for a couple of months, but it was a week here, then it would be a couple weeks off, then we'd come back a couple weeks later. And Brian Henson uh, and Kevin Clash ran those. They were kind of like workshops. We called it Frog Camp, is what we called it. And I've never been in an experience that was basically an audition experience where everybody who's auditioning is kind of together all the time. We were together all the time, working together, watching each other's work, helping each other out, which is kind of what Muppet performers do anyways. We are always there for each other. Anybody needs a hand, we're all there to help out and lend a hand. So that's kind of what that experience was. It was very intense. It was nerve-wracking. It was fun. It was, um, it was a very surreal experience. And, in the end, the decision was made to choose me to carry on in the role. And I was obviously elated. It's a super exciting thing. Like I said back at the beginning, Jim Henson meant so much to me. It was inspired me so much, so heavily my whole life. And to now carry on a character that was such a huge part of who he was is
Oh
a
yeah,
huge responsibility. And I try to honor that by keeping the character, uh, true to who Kermit is, what his heart is, and what he wants, which is, of course, to make millions of people happy. You know.
absolutely,
Mhm. Yep.
definitely. Yeah.
Oh, but you know what? I will say this, Jake. I do want to say this, Chris and Matt. Any of these characters that I play, whether it's Big Bird or whether it's Kermit the Frog or whether it's any in between, like even if it's like Sherlock Hemlock that I've played like once,
Hmm.
like they're all like they are always evolving. They are always growing. They are always they have to. They can't just be, um, an imitation. They have to feel real. They have to feel like a real character. We wouldn't have gotten anywhere on the Muppets Mayhem if all of us were, because everybody but Dave, we've all taken on somebody else's character. And if we were just doing these stale impressions, these characters, it just would have fallen flat. And I'm really proud of the work that all of us did on Muppets Mayhem, because those characters, like we've seen them a few times kind of go out on their own in like the 2015 series, but specifically in this series, we really were able to like let them grow and let them evolve a little bit, which is great. And that's kind of my goal for any of the characters that I play, is that they're going to always be evolving a little bit, but trying to keep true to the heart and the soul of the character and the person that originated it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now, one of your earliest things with Kermit was performing at the Hollywood Bowl and the O2. What were those experiences like?
Yeah. So my first public appearance as Kermit the Frog was at the Hollywood Bowl. So that's in front of 18,000 people.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
But it was awesome. It was so cool. Getting to do a live Muppet show is a dream come true. Just the only other thing I'd love to do is just the Muppet Show. I would love to do the Muppet Show, but doing a live Muppet Show, that's pretty doggone close. And so it was a really great experience. It was so fun. And everybody that we all had a great time. It was, you know, part of it is with any kind of live performance, and some of the Muppet performers, you know, don't like to do things live. It's, you know, when you're doing stuff with a Muppet, it's such a precise endeavor. And so to kind of just let yourself be free and open and just kind of like whatever happens in this one time is going to happen this one time only, and then we'll do it again tomorrow night. That's kind of hard for some Muppet performers to do. I'm not going to name any names, but there might be a couple that you know, and we all are perfectionists. We all want our work to look great every time, every moment. But in a live show, you just kind of have to go like it's gonna be, first of all, it's gonna be alive. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be so much fun, and if we can make this connection with the audience, we'll all come out of it like feeling great. And that's what happened for all the nights of that Hollywood Bowl show and the O2 show. It was just these experiences where, you know, it almost felt like anything could happen, even though they were very, very well plotted, well timed out, well worked out scripts. But something always didn't go as we expected it, which kind of made it a little bit more exciting. They were great. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was so much fun.
Oh yes,
Absolutely.
I
Wonderful.
really love the Rainbow Connection performances.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Like all of them coming
Yeah.
together. Like at
Yeah, it's so fun.
the
And
last
that's
part,
what,
it's just so special.
just beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's what the Muppets are all about.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly. So is it fine at all if we can hear a little bit of Kermit?
Sure. What do you want to hear? You know, I could just say, you know, it's great to be here with you.
What
Oh,
what's
Thank
it
you, Kermit.
what's it like being around Miss Piggy?
I'd rather not say it when I know I'm being recorded.
Fair enough.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kermit knows that, you know, at any minute there could be a pig
Yeah.
unhappy.
Listening. Yeah.
Just listening.
Right.
Yeah.
He's learned.
Yes.
He's learned.
Definitely.
Yeah. You were just bringing up Muppets Mayhem earlier,
Yeah.
which is a phenomenal show, by the way. Congrats to you and everybody on the Emmy nominations.
Thank you. Thanks.
We don't know if they won by the time this goes up, but as
Right.
of the time of recording, they haven't happened yet. So the album
haven't.
is
They have.
amazing
Yeah.
too.
Oh, thank you so much.
The
Thanks. That
album
was
is
so much fun.
amazing.
Yes.
A number one album
Love
that
it.
is.
Love
That's
that
right.
album so much. It's so
Yes,
great.
amazing.
Thank
Could you briefly share any stories from working on Muppets Mayhem?
Oh, well, I mean, like I said before, it was just so fun to get to, you know, work with my pals, some of my best pals, on some characters that we all love to work on. We had a great time. Bill did a fantastic job kind of leading the charge for this and helping um, executive produce and write and be Dr. Teeth. And so he was working so hard on this show, and he did such a fantastic job. Some things I'll remember about it is that we just had such a great time. I mean, I wish I could think of like a specific example. I'm sorry that I can't. Okay,
that's
here's
all
one.
right.
I do have one right now. This is kind of a fun thing. So we're outside shooting a shot. I wish I could tell you where we were, but I don't remember. If Peter Linz were here, he'd be able to tell you exactly where we were. But we were out in California in the hills somewhere, in the deserty kind of hills, shooting it's like I think it's in the last episode where the gang is outside the bus and they're kind of talking to Nora and telling her, we're going to go do the Hollywood Bowl. So we're shooting, I think it was that shot or somewhere in there. And we're getting ready to go, and we're seated again on the ground. We're seated on the ground because, we can't raise up the bus. We can't stand up and shoot. We are seated on the ground. And somebody goes, okay, cut, stop, everybody, careful, stand up, be careful. There was a rattlesnake that was winding its way.
Oh,
Now, yeah, it was a good distance away. It was not going to give us no danger, but it was a small rattlesnake. Not that that should make any difference, but it was like a juvenile rattlesnake. And up to this point, we have had a snake wrangler anytime we are out in the world. I'd never seen them called to action, but the snake wrangler came over, picked up the little snake, the little rattlesnake, and put it in a bucket and took it off and rehomed it somewhere far away from the set. And so that was kind of a fun day for everybody. We shot it in the spring and summer, and it was super hot in LA some days, and to have be inside the Electric Mayhem bus, and it there's no air conditioning in there, not when you're shooting anyway, because you'll hear this big sound from the air conditioners. So it would be so hot inside that metal bus. We were just, and with puppets on, you got puppets on, and sometimes you just say like, I can't even take the puppet off because I'll never be able to get it back on because it'll just be soaked in sweat. But it was so much fun. We had such a great time.
yes.
Oh yeah, it's a great series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so since we're about to wrap up, the last question that Matt's about to ask is a question we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of? Or in your own words, how do you define the word nostalgia?
Nostalgia for me is a thing that it can be. That's a really good question, and I had it right here on the tip of my tongue, but it's hard for me to put to words. It's a really difficult thing to describe because it is kind of like, to me, it's almost like an emotion. It's like a feeling of something. The Muppets have always been nostalgic. I have always had nostalgia for the Muppets, but at the same time, for me, they feel like it's a very active and present and now thing, probably because I work for them.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of things that I feel nostalgic about. It could be feeling nostalgic about my kids. I've got 5 kids. They range in age from 22 down to 11. And I've seen them all now pretty much all go through the same process as they grow up. And comparing their childhood to my childhood is kind of nostalgic. Nostalgic is like it kind of brings me back, I feel like, to a time where everything's right with the world. Everything's happy. Everything's good. Everything's warm. And that's what I think maybe my rambling answer really is. It has to do with a time in your life, my life, whose ever's life, that brings you back to a time of happiness and peace and warmth.
Absolutely agree with you,
Absolutely
Don.
worse than all.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking time to do this interview. This was a blast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. I hope I didn't talk too
yes,
much
and
and
no worries at all.
history.
And for what you're
No
doing,
worries.
for what you're doing, for Big Bird account and everything else, and what you're doing, what you're doing these characters, you're doing such an incredible job for what you're
Yes.
Thank you
doing
so
to
much.
your legacy.
Thank you so much.
Future
Thank you.
generations. Yes, of course.
That means a
Can I
lot.
wait
Thank you.
what's Yes, and can I wait what's what next in store for you? I'm glad to know what you've done, be a part of our lives. Your legacy is part of our legacy for what you're doing, and can I wait and keep up your great work, and can I wait what's next in store for you? So thank you very much for sharing with
Thank you
us.
so much.
It means a lot.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so
Thank
keep
you
in
so
touch,
much.
Matt. I'll let you know when this goes up, and have a happy
Chris.
holiday.
Yes.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
happy
You
holidays.
guys too.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
You.
afternoon.
You
Thanks.
too.
Matt.
Bye-bye, Matt.
Take care.
Bye
See
bye.
ya.
Yes. Yes, it's goodbye from us as well. We absolutely enjoyed our time
Yes.
with Matt Vogel.
So his social media and everything else, if you guys want to follow him, he'll be in the description down below. And if you guys want to check out his podcast, Below the Frame, is going to be in the description down below, so people can check it out as well.
Please do. It's an
Below the
amazing
Frame
podcast.
is such a wonderful podcast.
Really
Yes,
is.
but
Really is.
again, I absolutely enjoyed our time with Matt Vogel. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.